Hello and welcome. In this video I'm going to try and teach you Ableton Live in 5 minutes, and in that 5 minutes I want you to go from not having a clue about what to do with Ableton to actually making a simple song in Ableton. So what is Ableton? Ableton is a DAW, a digital audio workstation with sequencers, sounds, effects and all sorts of goodies to help you make music. It is primarily a loop-based music sequencer and mixers, and it was originally built for DJs to mix songs together. And what you see here is called the session view. When you open Ableton, you see a screen that looks like this, and it's called session view. You have 4 columns as a default. 2 of them are MIDI and the other 2 are audio. And in these columns in the session view, you can take samples and put them into these slots. Okay, so what that means is if you have a look at the left hand side of Ableton on the categories part of Ableton, you've got a whole bunch of very useful things. And the most useful thing here is if you want to use the session view is something called samples. Okay, you also have drums, sounds, MIDI effects and plugins you can use, but they're more advanced. You can use clips and you can use samples. These samples are the stock samples that come with Ableton. You can obviously add your own samples into Ableton, and you can even make shortcuts. For example, I've got my splice samples here and I made a shortcut. I'm not going to show you how to do that, but that is how you can organize your samples. So what I'm going to do is take one of these samples. Let's take this one, Funky Hats. I'm going to drag it into any one of these slots. I'm going to drag it into audio because samples are all audio samples, right? That differs from MIDI in that MIDI are notes and notes that play sounds. Audio samples are pre-recorded sounds that you can use. So first thing you'll notice is I've moved it here. It's just given it a default color. There's a little triangle. If you click on the triangle, it plays it. If you click it, it plays it. Okay. If you click on this row column, if you click the square, it stops it. Okay, so what it does is it just puts it automatically in time with the rest of the track, and the tempo for this track is 120. So if I play the track and change the tempo to 110, it slows it down. If I double click on the track, I can actually see on the bottom the waveform of the track. I can see all sorts of information about the track. If I press the space bar, that stops the track. If I click the space bar, it starts the track. Okay. Now what I can do, what the beauty of Ableton is in the session view, is you can just add other loops and other sounds. So it's quite loud, but let me just put the volume down just a little bit. Don't worry about this. I'll just push it down a little bit. So let's use that one there. Okay, so what you can do is when you're looking for your samples, anyone that you click, it will just automatically play it, as you can tell. If you don't want to hear it every time you click it, you just click on these headphones here and you won't hear it anymore, but it's very useful to obviously audition each one. I don't know, this is just a snare hit, so let's just put that here. Probably won't, it would just be okay. So I just press space again to stop that. So basically you saw here that pressing the square stops the loop, and pressing on the row, pressing that triangle starts the loop. Okay, and let's find another loop. And that won't do, so just move that in here. So it doesn't matter what tempo the loop is, okay, it will always play in time with the tempo of the track. So let's go. So we're now literally playing 2 loops over each other. If I press the square, I'm going to stop the loop on the 3rd column. I can just click it to start it again. It's always in time. Let's press space. If I unclick warp, it will only play once. So let's just click the whole row. It not only plays it once, it doesn't play in time. Okay, so anyway, this is advanced concepts. I'm not going to go into too much detail there, but in a nutshell, this is session view. Most people, including myself, will tend to use something called arrange view, and the way to swap between session and arrange is these 2 little circles on the right hand side. So I'm going to swap to arrange, and this just to tell you that I can go back to session. So this is arrange view. So basically here in arrange view is where you can arrange information into a song. So let's just remove all of these tracks. So the way I can remove a track, and these are tracks. Now, a difference between session and arrange views is that arrange view, everything is arranged in a row, whereas session, everything was in columns. So let me just select by pressing shift and select multiple by pressing shift and down, pressing the mouse, and I could just literally click the delete button and you've only got 1 track left. To add a track to the arrange view, click insert audio track. To add a MIDI track, click insert MIDI track. A MIDI track is information with notes. Okay, the difference between audio and MIDI I just described is MIDI is notes. So Ableton comes with a bunch of instruments which create MIDI type sounds. Okay, so if we click on one of these, let's click operator and click bass, what we can do is select 4 bars. So I've just literally highlighted those 4 bars, right click, and I'm going to insert a MIDI clip. That MIDI clip has nothing in it. You can see on the bottom, nothing is in there. There's information here for that MIDI clip, but there's nothing in there. I'm going to then select that MIDI clip, press Ctrl L to loop the MIDI clip, okay? And then I'm going to use the metronome, which is these 2 buttons. I'm going to press space to start. You can hear that absolutely nothing is playing. For me to play a MIDI piece of information, which is, say, similar to playing like a piano or something which requires digital information, I will click on this track and I will click on that button here, a red button, which really arms the channel for recording. That red button just says this track, whatever you select, can be recorded on. And then we have to select an instrument. So let's audition the sounds. So just like audio, you can actually audition the sounds in Ableton for the stock instruments. Let's choose house bass. So the way to get house bass in is literally, if you've selected the track, you can double click on house bass and that instrument just pops down here on the bottom. This is the instrument for that track. Now I can switch off the instrument by clicking the on-off button. I can actually select it and press delete and get rid of it, and if I want, I can drag the instrument to the track, and there it is. Because now I've armed the track red, I can actually, on my MIDI keyboard or any keyboard, I can start putting notes in. So I can just press anything like this. Okay, to get the song in time, click Edit, Record Quantization, and basically just to get into 4/4 time, you select 16-note quantization. We've got the track going here. So this just arms so you can hear the track playing, but to record the track, you need to go here and select Record. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, and then you press space to stop, or you can press the square to stop. Let's hear it. So the 16th notes did put it in time, but obviously it didn't play it very well. So you can actually select any of these notes. These are notes you've just played. Select them, press Control A, select all of them, and then click Quantize, or you can click Quantize Settings and just quantize to one of these settings. So I can select that. So the other thing you could do is move. So you just select one note. You can move the note up and down, or you can move it to the start of the track. You can press Copy V to copy and paste the track, or press Control D to duplicate not the track, but the note. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to press Control D and it's duplicated. I mean, it's rubbish at the moment, but it's just to explain how this MIDI works. So what I'm going to do now is click on the audio track, look for audio sound. So let's look for some samples. So by the way, we've got drums, which is a combination of MIDI and samples. It's a little bit more complicated, but it does have all drum sounds. But I'm going to just go into samples. Now, once I'm in samples, I can actually search in here by just typing keywords. So let's type in the word loop and see what comes up. So all the samples with the word loop appear here, and we can just now audition them to see if we like one. Don't really like that one, but we can use it. So let's just select and drag it into here. You can see here that it only fits half of the loop. So what you can do is select the sample and then press Control D to duplicate it. So we just duplicate that sample. Let's hear what it sounds like. Okay, so that's pretty radically fast. So what we can do is we can slow this loop down by selecting the sample and actually, and then actually pressing the star 2 button, and that will slow it down. Okay, we can, because it slowed it down, it's actually doubled it in size. So the way to increase it in size, actually before we start with that, we can go up here. If you put your mouse up here, it'll put the sort of magnifying glass there. If you right click on the magnifying glass and drag the magnifying glass, it makes the selection much bigger. Okay, so you can select that first sample and then press Control D, and that will duplicate it. You can see that we've halved the tempo of that, and because this loop is on, it will just keep looping. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to show you were effects. So basically, audio effects are effects in terms of reverb or any other types of effects that change how the sound works, pretty much what the track sounds like. Okay, so for example, let's use a simple reverb effect. So let's select reverb here. So the way to use effects is to select the track in question. Okay, double click to select the track in question, and then drag the reverb effect behind the instrument. So now you've got a chain. You've got the instrument and the reverb effect. Let's listen to it now. Okay, press space to stop. You want to hear it without the reverb, switch the reverb off. On, off, on. Let's change the tempo to 115. The whole thing changes. Okay, so this is why it's called live, because you can do things playing live. So press space again. I'm going to move a phaser into this effects chain. I can hear how it sounds as I'm moving things around. Okay, if you put the phaser before the reverb, it will sound a little bit different because the chain is different. Okay, and you can do exactly the same thing with the audio track. Audio tracks works exactly the same way with the effects. So let's use another reverb, this one, sorry. You can change the dry wet signal. Put a flanger on there, you can put all sorts of effects. Change the dry wet signal, so we got less of the flanger in there. Okay, you can select the whole loop by clicking on this black bar on the top. Use the magnifying glass to make it smaller again. And then once you've selected that whole loop, you then press Ctrl D to duplicate. Okay, so you don't just use Ctrl D to duplicate notes, you can use it to duplicate loops. And obviously once you're in a loop, you can select one of the pieces of information. Let's select the MIDI, and we can actually mess around with the MIDI. So for example, if you press Control up, that will move the note an octave higher. And this note, by the way, is A. And I know that because I've hovered over the note and I can see A1, okay? A2 means A but a higher octave. So let's select the second one and press Control up. Sorry, Shift up, not Control up. So you can see this is now A2. I can actually make this screen much bigger, and I can move this one up. I can move this one here up, Shift up. And what I'm doing is I'm just messing with the MIDI arrangement. So it sounds the same, but it's just a variation. And then we can do the same by clicking on any of the pieces of information. Let's make this a bit smaller. Pressing Control L to loop this third piece, and then I could select all of the MIDI and just press right or left to actually shift the position of the MIDI. And it sounds different, doesn't it, when you do that? You can press Shift down to make it an octave lower, Shift up to make the whole thing an octave higher. Right? And if I want to make sure this is a different piece of information, you can actually color code it. So you can actually change the color there. You can actually rename this loop. You can call it alternative loop. You can also, and by the way, I did that by right clicking. Okay, there's quite a few things you can do by right clicking, but that's the most basic thing. And obviously you can rename the track too by doing the same thing, right clicking and go rename, and we call it bass. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell, guys and girls. I think I've actually done more than 5 minutes, but if you've got any questions, please comment. If you like this video, please subscribe. If you want other videos going into more detail, please do not hesitate to ask. I would love to do it for you. So thank you very much for your time, and all the best in making music with Ableton. See you later.